my dude. Appreciate you joining the show today. And we're just talking a little bit before we hit record here about my comeback from the cardiac arrest, but you have a freaking epic comeback story as well. So I know we've talked about it a little bit, but you've really turned your comeback story into a business and into something that is really flourishing and thriving and helping people do the same. So, dude, take me back a little bit to where your comeback story really begins. Take me back to pre-comeback story.
Yeah, because in order to understand the rock bottom, you gotta understand where I started from.
Right.
So, I was, in college, I was an 8-time All-American one, sorry, 8-time All-American Division I collegiate athlete, 30-something Colorado state records for relay events, 16 national top 16 in the country titles. I was a good swimmer, man. I was really good. Couldn't do anything on land, but when it came to the water, I kicked butt. Uh, and I think you can only go up and down a pool so many times. I was losing my freaking mind. I still had love for the water, but I was quickly falling out of love with swimming. And I transitioned sports to surfing. And I thought in my young, arrogant days, oh, I'll just be a pro surfer. If I don't want to be a pro swimmer anymore, I'll just go be a pro surfer.
Easy.
Easy, right? If I can swim in a pool, I can go conquer the ocean. And as life often does, it humbles us. Not long after selling everything that I had and moving out to Cali, I was pursuing this pipe dream that I had of being a pro surfer, and I wiped out, had a pretty gnarly accident. Lower back hit a rock, and it was just done. It was game over from there. The force of the impact, I fractured my T12 vertebrae. I had multiple herniations. The force of the impact created such significant nerve damage on one side that I had such a severe spasm and a contraction. My lower spine curved 21 degrees to the side. And so begins what was a really rough 10 years of just pain. It was pain and misery, man. I went from being this, so I thought I was a stud, maybe that's arguable, but I went from being this stud, capable of doing whatever it is that I wanted. I had the endurance of a god, and then I could barely stand up for more than 5 minutes after breaking my back in just agonizing pain. And my capacity as a human being went from what I felt like superhero to just nothing like that. It was a life-changing injury.
What did
So
you
yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry to interrupt there. My question was, you know, you had this identity of being a stud, being the jock, being the swimmer, being this accomplished athlete, and, most accomplished athletes, like, they tend to do well in all the other areas of their life, and when that's taken away from you, I relate to this story, and just there's been some things, like, that have happened in my life where I've had to shed this certain identity that I've had, being a football player, being a runner, being this, being that, and then having to take a step back and find out who you are at your core. So, my question to you, and feel free to continue, if this is relatable to your story, but, like, what was next after you were like, "Oh, okay, well, this isn't who I am anymore?"
Yeah, it's a great question. One that I saw many other elite athletes at my level struggle with post college. Once they quit, there was this space and time to figure out, well, who are you and what does life mean to you and what are your values and what are you going to fill now with these hours and hours a day that you're no longer training? I was so abruptly taken from sport into chronic disability and injury, mixed with the terrible pain prescriptions that were given to me. I was going through an identity crisis. I was going through addiction to these narcotics all at the same time while movement was taken away. I wish I had this breathing room to go find love with a new sport or like explore the hobbies and activities that I loved. Man, it was survival mode. I went from, again, being this like capable guy to just staring at my ceiling fan for hours and hours and hours a day. Um, Just instead of trying to figure out like my identity, man, I was trying to figure out like how do I brush my teeth and take a shower and like comb my hair and make breakfast all at once? Because the moment I lay down on the ground, I don't want to go have to fight through standing the pain of what it was standing up again. I really struggled post this life-changing injury, even feeling grounded at all. Though I was lying on the ground most of my time, I was lost. I was aimless. Like I said, you mix in narcotics on top of that, and which I had never really had a lot of exposure to. I had a lot of time to just do these narcotics and become nothing and be nothing. It was a massive mental, physical, and emotional struggle. And I think going through the injury and the pain that I was going through, I think that was hard enough in isolation, but it wasn't just in isolation. It was in context of how great I was. So the emotionality of now not being able to do anything when I feel like I had accomplished so much, it was such a sharp drop off in life. And I wish I could tell you I gracefully, I woke up early, I got a good morning routine. I crumbled, man. I fell. Physically, rock bottom very quickly took me to mental and emotional rock bottom. I know this sounds really lame, but I, I knew how to win. I knew how to win in my sport. Of course, I went up to challenges. Of course, not every time that I swim was great, but for the most part, it was mostly always pretty good. It was just my natural gift and my talent. It was my sport that I was called to. So I seemed to always thrive in it and always get better and better and better. I didn't really deal with that much adversity up until breaking my back. That was really my first moment of, oh my God, I'm gonna have to work through something that I've never had to work through. So it was a culture shock, if you will.
And what were some of the things that you did in order to climb out of rock bottom? Right? Because I remember too, and it's so funny, like these back injuries, they just are nagging because there's no timetable on when you're gonna be healed. Even when I tore my ACL, it's like, okay, 9 to, 12 months or whatever, and like you're gonna be back. Cool. Like
Mhm.
you break your arm, it's gonna be healed in 6 weeks, whatever it is. With a back, it's so hard because every single person is different, and you have to just keep showing up and just trusting that eventually it will get better. But it's like, how do you know if it's gonna get better if you're not feeling any sort of pain or any sort of relief in any of the physical therapy that you're doing or any of the um healing modalities that you're doing? So what was step 1 for you in getting out of rock bottom?
Yeah, so I think my story actually looks probably pretty similar to most other people who experience any kind of back pain, let alone a traumatic injury like that. Is you go see the experts, you go see the neurologists, you go see the PTs, you go see the doctors, you go see the physios, you go see the chiros and acupuncturist and massage therapist and everybody expert. I left no stone unturned. I searched online. I went to the gurus who just promised me these quick fixes. And those everything that I went through was enough to just kind of keep me hopeful enough. Each kind of like new therapy that I tried was, oh, I've never tried Rolfing. I've never looked at as fascia as the root of my problem. It just got me a little bit of hope to get me just far enough to realize, oh, that's not working at all, is it? And then I would find something else, and then I would find something else. My ADHD, I think, is what actually kept me going because I was so scattered and I would try so many different things. That was almost like what I needed to just not completely like lose it and fall apart. So I scattered myself thin. I put many eggs in many different baskets. I tried a bunch of different therapeutic approaches, some my insurance, others not, but not that it really mattered because my insurance wasn't that great anyways. I really stuck to the basic principles of what I believed to be was the root problem, which was PT, at least targeted approaches, focusing on my back. And I went in and out of therapist, man. And this was I'm a little foggy on the time frame. Not only because it was so long ago, but there were heavy narcotics involved just to get me, through the day. Probably 2.5 years of bouncing from one PT to the next. And um, Eventually, I just started to lose hope, and what ultimately got me through it all was this realization of, I just maxed out a credit card, another credit card. I was broke. My fracture had healed, my herniations had healed, but my movement was worse. I was more disabled. I felt like 3 to 4 years after the injury than I felt like the first year of the injury. Things were getting just exponentially worse. It was like the problem was compounding on itself. What finally got me through, that gave me a foundation, a leg that I could stand on, was me actually just taking responsibility of things, man. I fell into a trap, and I'm sure so many other people are either in that trap now or are just making their way out or they're long past it. But it is the trap that, just because you're like paying somebody money, you think it's gonna get solved. Like, you're handing over thousands of dollars to somebody, they're gonna do it for you. You almost kinda, like, offshore the responsibility and the work onto somebody else, and that's what I had done for years, and that actually kinda kept me going enough because I felt like there was this traumatic accident that happened to me, so I didn't wanna be responsible to it. I wanted somebody else who was a pro to come over and take care of me, and it wasn't until I took full responsibility of this problem and I actually put myself back through school. I started to get an education in exercise physiology and certified personal training and corrective exercise specialist. It wasn't until I took those moments of responsibility and took it upon myself to actually learn it myself did did I actually feel like there was actually light at the end of the tunnel. It took a long time.
So for you, it was having to test and iterate and see what worked for you, and then what triggered and inspired you to now do what you're doing with Pain Academy and help people get out of that pain that they're in?
Yeah, so it was a lot of testing, and the modalities that I listed, PT, acupuncture, chiropractic, massage, like, they were all good, right? They all did something, but those were all passive forms of therapy. It was like me going to somebody and somebody doing something to me. Well, what about, like, in between appointments? There was nothing for me to do except just lie there on my back, continually staring at the ceiling. It wasn't until, and I'll try to be brief with the story about it, but I was in a grocery store. I was like trying to pull a jug of milk off the shelf, and I dropped it because I wasn't literally strong enough to pull that gallon out before experiencing tremendous amounts of pain. So I dropped this milk. I made a mess everywhere. And this guy approaches me in the store and he's like, "Hey man, I want to help you out." And me, years into this cycle of never ending therapy, I'm like, I don't need your help, don't need it. And he's like, "No, no, I want to help you out with your leg." And I'm like, dude, my leg is not the problem. Like, I broke my back. My back is the problem. He's like, "Look, I don't want $1 from you. Just come see me. Here's my card. My therapy office is right across the street. Let me show you some things that I know are going to help." Oh, this guy was full of shit. There's no way. I put his appointment card somewhere in my car and I lost it for a couple months. Fast forward a couple more months. I'm walking around the gym. I'm a personal trainer at this point. I'm certified, I'm educated, still in an insane amount of pain, hobbling around from one appointment to the next. A member of the gym comes up to me, a guy who I've never spoken to. He hands me a card and he's like, "Hey, I don't mean to be too forward, but I think you need to go see my guy. He could really help you." Of course, I roll my eyes like, "There's no way, pal. If I can't help myself, like, you can't help me." The guy that he gave me was the same guy that I ran into at the grocery store months before. And so I'm thinking, all right, something's going on here. Fine. I surrender, universe, God, whatever it is, I surrender. I will call this man and I'll go book an appointment. And I did. I drove down to Santa Monica. This guy didn't touch me. There was no massage, there was no adjustment. He looked at my body just the way I was walking into the appointment. And it's like he knew what to do with me. And he told me, "You're going to lie down on the ground and you're going to do this." And he would move my arm to a weird position. Then he'd move my other leg to a weird position. And he's like, "Great, you're going to breathe 10, 15 minutes." And then he showed me another exercise and another thing and another thing. And the whole time I'm in this appointment, I'm thinking, this is an utter waste of my time. We're not doing anything. Thank God I didn't pay for it. Otherwise, I'd want my money back. Some 90 minutes goes by, and this gentleman tells me to stand up. Man, I just started to cry. It was the first time in years I felt this kind of relief. Not like a little bit, but enough where I could breathe and it wasn't sharp stabbing pain. Now, it wasn't gone, it wasn't a miracle, but oh my gosh, what just happened? Again, without touching me, like he showed me different things to do with my body that I didn't understand at the time, and I felt significantly better. Where is this information? Why was this style of movement therapy, this movement pattern correction, why was this never recommended by any doctor, by any PT, by any expert, by any chiro? It was the simplest darn thing in the world. Just lay down, do a couple simple movements. And it took some time for me to understand why it was so effective. But I had this epiphany in this session. How many people out there need this kind of help? It's so basic. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You need to lie down on the ground and do some really basic movements and watch what happens. And me having this profound experience and me being capable of doing this thing every single day, this was like the missing piece that I needed. It was the answer for in between all the other stuff, maintenance. It was stuff that I was in control of, that I could do on a daily basis to make progress. Man, for me, it was the holy grail. And I was both crying out of this realization of, I think I found it. I think I found the thing I've been looking for. And also anger. How the hell has nobody in the world told me about this or really heard about this? And so I did two things from that day on. I made it my life's work and my life's purpose to understand what that man knows so I can go do for other people what he did for me. And I want to make this therapeutic approach accessible to as many people as possible. And that is what now set up the framework for what I do. And I did those two things. I poured my entire existence into understanding movement pattern restoration, whatever the hell that meant, and how do you make a comeback from a life-changing injury? And I had to walk the walk myself. I had to learn how to talk the talk. And the more I learned how to put myself back together, I started sharing these principles, these simple little objective truths with other people. And it started to do radical things in other people's lives. And parents are able to play with their kids again. People who were never athletic are now like running half marathons, just they're living different lives because of these simple little movements every day. It One thing led to the next, and one person told another person, and now there's this business that's in dozens of countries all over the world. It's pretty cool, man. And I get to run it, and I get to lead it, and I get to do for others what that man did for me that day.
Dude, what an insane story that it was the same person that you saw in
Same
the
man.
grocery store. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in accidents. And so there was something extremely divine going on that day. And, thank God that happened and that you were able to put your ego to the side the second time and be like, okay, I'm going to give this some.
Yeah, I didn't think that there was gonna be a third time if I didn't learn how to do it the second time, but
Right.
man, the spiritual eye roll that I had the moment that I saw that guy's name on that exact cardigan, it was just, it couldn't have been any other way.
So you said that it took you a while to understand why that session was so effective for you. Reflecting on it, why was it so effective?
Yeah, so it was the fact that we basically did nothing while putting my body in balanced positions that led to me actually feeling better. Most people who want to feel a change, most people that have imbalances, restriction, nervous system, muscular system problems, we want to just get to work right away. What's the exercise? It's almost like, what's the strength way to do this? How do we use intensity to combat this internal problem? And that's what I've been doing for years. I felt this really big problem, very painful, very limited and restrictive, so very intense issue internally. And I was a hammer looking for a nail. What are the other really big, intense, big bang exercises I can do? That day, lying on the ground, down regulated my nervous system. It calmed down all of the overactive muscles. It gave the overactive muscles a lowered excitability. So it calmed them down. While the muscles that weren't really working too well, it started to bring them up to par. Essentially, it changed the body that I had. So when I did go do exercise, my chances of using the right and the left sides of the body were better together. The chances were higher that I was going to use the right muscles to move the right joints. And one of the mistakes I see people make in the corrective exercise world is people just go straight to like an ego thing. Let me just go give something that's going to break somebody. Let me make it hard. Let me make them intense. Because I don't think people have learned to value the opposite of intensity. And before any meaningful changes in exercises can be done, we first have to downregulate the body. We have to relax the problem first. Otherwise, the things that we're going to go do, we're doing with the problem that we're trying to change. And many people have the experience of maybe you got bad knees, so you go learn some like forward single leg lunge. Okay. And it feels better. Like it actually feels like you're making progress. And it's a huge win early on. But we tend to strengthen these movement patterns. And many people have this experience of getting stronger at the start, feeling better, and then another big injury happens. And then they have to take time off and then they start over again. So then they start off with the harder exercises. They get stronger, they strengthen the problem, strong enough to the point where they're going to get injured again. And then so begins this cumulative injury cycle over and over. What was so brilliant about this session was it was such a minimal amount of work. It actually gave hundreds of muscles the chance and opportunity to efficiently work better together again. It almost like peeled away the outer layers of movement impairments and gave the right side and left side a chance to actually communicate, connect, and work better together. So it was this playing with intensity that I don't see anywhere. I think people play with intensity, but the really high end of the spectrum of intensity. But it's like the softer, the lighter, the easier stuff, the things that have you saying, "What am I doing, man? This is a waste of time." It's amazing at how responsive the body is with those kinds of things. And let me give you an analogy, maybe an example to help maybe frame this or make sense of it. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with our bodies is work with our nervous system, right? We're trying to make a change with our nervous system. I want you to think about your relationship with your nervous system. When there is a problem, imagine as if it were a problem with a child. Let's say you're a parent and you've got a problem with a child. Are you going to bring intensity to that child? No. I mean, you could raise your voice, you could use aggression, you can use conflict, you can use intensity, which would probably escalate things. And maybe in a dominating, controlling way, you beat that child or you win the argument. But man, when you can learn how to meet a child with like softness and calmness, the same way anybody would de-escalate a situation where you create safety and you create openness, man, that's what creates a true change with our nervous system. And what I think so many people are trying make a change with their body. And they're using uh, this really intense, insane approach that just almost overrides their ability to listen to themselves and work with their body. And so one of the things that I teach people is like, first, let's learn how to communicate better with our nervous system. Let's not use power, force, and dominating energy. Let's actually learn how to de-escalate tension. Let's calm down conflict first and then begin to move once we have a better foundation. And the results are freaking unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. And I think you know that if you've ever been in an argument with a loved one or a relationship, you know what it's like where tensions rise and a problem escalates. And you also know what happens when meaningful communication exists and you slip into this like safe place of like healing and love and trust. Man, if we can create that with our own body with simple down regulating exercises, the same damn thing happens. Progress in meaningful ways. It's pretty cool.
Was there a follow-up with this guy?
Yeah, so there was many follow-ups with this guy. You're talking about the trainer?
Yeah, I'm curious. So the guy that you went and who taught you cried, after, it was the same guy. Um, right? So was there a follow-up with him,
Yeah.
and did those sessions look a little
It
bit did they look a little bit different than that first session that you did?
yeah, so that first session was the beginning of a multi-year long mentorship. I whatever little money I had, I poured into this guy, and I racked up tens of thousands of dollars in debt to continue being mentored by this guy. Um, I was I wanted to be his number one student, and it took me a long time to realize that what he was teaching could be done better because there were more questions than I had answers. And I think that's the case with any practice that you really lean into. You know, you get to know it so much where you feel like you don't know anything. Um, I had eventually made this guy a business partner because I thought we could partner up and join the world. I thought we could partner together and change the entire world. Ultimately, it wasn't a good fit, but I trained with this guy for years, almost once a week, maybe once every other week, and the amount of tools and that I was given, the amount of skill set that I was given, I was allowed to shadow this guy on really intense house calls where people were extremely disabled. I don't want to idolize this man too much, but man, I saw things that were I just wish were documented. I wish they were on video because they were truly incredible. The amount of impact that something like this can happen when you're that good. It's quite incredible. And and I owe a lot of my foundation to what this individual showed me. And I also saw that some of the things that he showed me, um, things could be done better. There could be a better transfer of skills. It could be made easier. I needed to become a specialist to understand this guy's method. I don't believe you need to become a specialist to understand your own body. I don't believe you need to become a rocket scientist to just learn basic tools of self-care. And that's where we started to separate ways, which is I wanted to not go really deep on the educational route. I wanted to give people the tools and the skills that they needed to patch up their own lives and to build meaningful movement practices without being the center of the show. I didn't want anybody to rely on me. I didn't want it. If I was working with somebody longer than a year, I feel like I failed them. I never wanted it to be the Vinny show. I always wanted the people to be the center stage, and this is where we kind of really we really parted ways and we drifted apart because we had two deep philosophical conflicting ideas on how we wanted to bring this stuff to the world.
Well, I think that's a beautiful thing that you're able to recognize and, like, respect his craft and his expertise, but also know that there might be another way, or a different target audience, or not even target audience, but, like, other a different crowd of people who might benefit from, what you're trying to do versus what he's trying to do. And there's just this idea of chronic pain, right? There's this, not even an idea, it's this reality of chronic pain, and so many
Mhm.
Americans are dealing with it every single day. You hear it, "I'm in pain, I'm in chronic pain," these drugs to deal with chronic pain. And it's almost like a marketing word now too for these drug companies and these quick fixes. For you, what does chronic pain actually mean?
It means chronic inflammation. That's it. Pain is, and I understand this might fall flat for a lot of people that are listening to this, and I can, of course, digress if need be. Um, I've had to do so much work on myself in changing my relationship with pain. It's just a sensation, and it's just a thing that our bodies are hardwired to feel. It's not bad, it's not good, it's not right, it's not wrong. Pain is information. How you place attention on that information is going to ultimately determine if you stay stuck in a cycle of chronic pain for years, if not decades, or if you break free from it. Most marketing and communication is vilifying pain. Pain's bad. Do get pain relief here. Um, do our product, take our drug, it'll eliminate pain. Most people are approaching pain as if it is the problem. Pain's just the messenger that something's going on with our body. And most people in chronic pain will find that they are trying to kill the messenger, not go after why is that messenger in the first place. And this took me years to understand. My back was broken. It was in a lot of pain. Notice how I say it was, not my back, because we try to really identify with pain. We make it ours. My back, my this, my that, my pain. We have to separate ourselves from the experience that we have with pain and understand that there are products and devices that are trying to kill the pain, and there are therapies that are trying to teach us why the pain is there in the first place. And those are two completely different things. One of those things is a multi billion dollar industry. The other one is not, because it is really easy for me to sell you that your pain's the problem and I will fix your pain, as opposed to, hey, let me teach you why you're in pain and what you can do about it. One of them's got a very long time horizon to get better, but you'll be able to sustain those results. And the other one's fast, it's immediate, it speaks to our short term attention. So, yeah, unfortunately, pain for many people has been commoditized and it's been made to be the bad guy. And if your relationship with pain is one that is emotional, that you put morality on, like it's good, it's bad, it's right, it's wrong. If you've attached emotions to pain, like this is the thing that's keeping me from living my life, this is the thing that took me away from sport, I'm in pain, which is why I can't be intimate. If you start to position pain as your problem, man, just extend how many years you're going to be in pain. And I'll give you another example of this. I can almost tell, because I've been doing this for 12 years now, I can almost tell how fast or how long it's going to take for somebody to feel better by the questions that they ask me at the start. The people that say, "Hey, how long until I get out of pain?" Man, years. I don't even know your problem. I don't even know the extent of your injury, but for you, years, because you're just trying to get out of it. So when you have that mindset, you're going to be looking for the shortcuts. If I give you a month's worth of exercises and they don't get you out of pain, guess who's going to stop doing the exercises? You, because you just want to get out of it. If you're a person that says, how long will it take me to learn how to take care of my body? Dude, I think you're going to get out of pain probably pretty quick, because you're looking towards a process. Um, do you have something, somebody who asks a question of, how long can I stay out of pain for? What is the thing that can show me to teach me how to stay out of pain long term? It's people who are thinking about a process at the beginning of the conversation, who are looking for a process to take care of themselves. Those are the ones that don't have this really tight grip on pain that immediately needs to go away. They're more relaxed about it. Their relationship with pain is relaxed. So they'll probably get results a hell of a lot faster, because they're not fixating on putting their body on a strict timeline that most likely won't work from them. So, what does chronic pain mean to me, man? It means information. Um, if I feel pain now, I don't even know it's pain. I've just changed how I associate all of these sensations. It's just information. I now am an ultra marathon runner. I choose, I guess if we'll call it pain, every damn day of my life. I now voluntarily put myself in some of the most idiotic, abusive sport one can do to their body, which is endurance running. Now, I'm sure every athlete says, "No, no, no, my sport's the most extreme." But you know, to endure that kind of pounding, 100 something miles a week, day in and day out, it's hard on the body. You are going to be in pain if you're an ultra marathon runner, but your relationship with that pain changes significantly. It's just information. What exercises do I need more of? What kind of foods do I need to start eating? How do I need to play with my diet? What am I doing with my sleep? It's not like, oh God, I'm an ultra marathon runner and I'm in pain. What do I do? And this sucks. It's you embrace it and you accept it and you allow it to be here. So your relationship with it changes and you're actually able to live a very meaningful high quality life with it. For those people stuck in chronic pain, I get it. I was there. I spent almost my entire 20s in chronic pain. And it wasn't until I changed my mindset and my relationship with pain that things really started to fundamentally change for me. So I had to change my approach. I had to change the questions I was asked, to change my focus. And it wasn't until I did that I really was able to make profound changes in my life.
What made you wanna get into ultra marathon running, especially somebody who has helped, hundreds, thousands of people get out of pain? A lot of it's so funny how people think, "I need to get in shape. I'm just gonna go run." It's like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I see people out there
It's
just
primal, man.
it is primal. I see people out there and granted, I don't not try to press judgment on anybody, but man, like, it's like you look more in pain, like looks like it's doing you more harm than good. Your joints and your tendons are not strong enough to handle that load, especially road running. So, why for somebody who is helping people optimize their health from a movement um, quality of life standpoint, get into something like you said that is pretty intense.
Yeah, it's a great question. Once I started to figure out what I needed to do on a daily basis to get out of pain, felt pretty good. But that's all I was doing is I was just doing routines to feel good. I was working with everybody from people who had never stepped foot into a gym to some of the top NFL players in this country. So I had a very wide range of clientele, elite athletes to just your everyday folks. I remember an ultra runner reached out to me and he had to quit running because of this injury. And I'm not saying what we did was miraculous, but after a few sessions, after a few routines, he was so intimate with his body. He knew himself so well. We were able to get to some really profound routines that got him back to running and he got back into ultra running. I gave him the missing piece that somebody gave me. And I'm sitting in my office chair doing 8 to 12 appointments day in and day out, getting other people across the finish line, helping other people win championships, getting other people world records and PRs and blue ribbons. Who was I to know what I know and just do nothing with it? It almost felt like I hit this point of knowledge with my body that it would be a waste knowing what I know with my own body to not put it to the test. And so I wanted to be more. I had never been a runner. I've always hated running. I started running at 32 and I'm 35 right now. So I've been running for about 3 years. And it was miserable and it challenged me to have to learn a new set of skills to take care of my body. So it was like I got out of pain, great. Then I learned how to stay out of pain, great. Well, what's next? I could have just done that for decades more and probably lived a high quality life, but I think it was just that inner athlete, man, that part of me that I had to kill all those years back after breaking my own back. it was just this inner voice, man, of like, why not? Like, why aren't you going to go do incredible things? You know what you know now. You've been to rock bottom. There's no injury in running. Oh God, I'm knocking on wood. There's no injury in running that I feel like would be worse than breaking your back, unless you like break your back again. But I feel like I had been through the worst of it. Like, what could be worse than that? So I started to run and I hated it. And I fell in love with how much I hated it. And what it forced me to understand, it took me out of the textbooks and it put me back into my body of being an athlete now with this information. Um, I remember the first time I ran half a mile, kicked my butt. I was dying, dude. Not only was a half a mile almost impossible, but I think it took me like a week to recover from running half a mile. I had to pull out all the tools in my tool belt to recover from that half a mile run. And then the next week I did 3/4 of a mile. And the next week was a mile. And then it was a mile and a half. It was 2 miles. And, as I'm doing these like 2-mile runs that were really hard, I had this one random Saturday run where I hit my 2-mile mark. And I'm like, I feel good. What's happening right now? The sky is blue. The birds are singing. Can we keep going? I did like 4.5 miles, man. 4.5 miles. That was absurd to me. I never in my wildest dreams, after running that mile test in sixth grade PE, did I think I would go run 4.5 miles. And I did. And it felt pretty damn good. And this idea came in my mind that day. Well, if I could do 4.5, what's the limit? I thought half a mile was my limit a couple of weeks ago. Now I'm at 4.5, 4.5 miles. It was just this addiction that started. Like any endurance athlete, you probably have a background in trauma, you probably have a background in sports, you probably are a sucker for pain. It was just I had all of the ingredients. I had the recipe for falling in love with endurance running, and I did. And um, it's been an incredible past 3 years being able to see what my body's been capable of after having this life altering injury. And uh, being able to cross the finish line of a 50-mile race through the mountains, dude, after spending almost your entire 20s fearful of movement, scared, alone, and in pain, that feeling I want so many people to have. And I'm not saying you need to go run an ultra. It's just that feeling of, I'm back. I'm back, baby. Let's go. It's freaking cool.
What were some of the things that you had to do, changes, new implementations? You mentioned diet, sleep, movements, routines. What were some of the things that you had to change and dial in when you started running?
Dude, I had to become a new person. Everything had to change. I had to firstly examine my diet. I didn't understand how malnourished I was until I started training for running. And it shouldn't take a week to recover from a run, but it was taking me a week to recover from a run because I wasn't even looking at labels, man. I wasn't caring about ingredients. There was no quality of food in mind. I was just eating to eat. And so I am by no means a nutritionist or a pro when it comes to food, but I started making better choices, higher quality ingredients. I started being mindful of what my daily protein intake was. I started being mindful of what my caloric expenditure was. Um, you know, I was barely clearing some days 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day. I'm not a heavy eater. I can sometimes go until 5 or 6 o'clock at night and realize, oh my God, I haven't eaten anything today. I had a terrible structure when it came to food and nutrition. I was almost like fasting, intermittent fasting every single day for probably 14 to 15 hours a day. I would binge through the night and I wouldn't eat anything until dinner the next day. My whole rhythm was off. Like everything had to fundamentally change. So I started to force myself to have higher quality foods, eat first thing in the morning, give my body the fuel it needed. So I wasn't just constantly depleting myself with these runs, especially once things got into the 20 to 30 mile run. for just training sessions, man, I feel like I just became a human calculator. Every calorie was counted for. I had to be very mindful of what I was spending. I had to track the macronutrients and especially the micronutrients because you were burning through so many vitamins and micronutrients on a 20 to 30-mile run that if you didn't have your nutrition dialed in, you'd feel like death for days. And as an ultra runner, I needed to be able to run 30 miles one day and then run a half marathon or 20 miles the next day. That's the whole point is you break down your body and then you show up the next day on tired legs so you can get used to what is it like in those last 20 to 30 miles of a race. My nutrition was my Achilles heel. So, firstly, I had to dial in better quality foods, better ingredients, no processed foods or very minimally. I just had to give myself the raw goods. Once I dialed that in, my entire perspective on movement had to change. Like I said, I got really good at pain management. I got really good out of I got really good at getting out of pain and staying pain free with a sedentary lifestyle. Now I'm doing 50, 60, 80 miles a week when my body had never been used to these kinds of things. I had to reimagine how I had to approach my own body. What were the strength exercises I needed to be strong enough to endure that kind of pounding on the pavement every single day? What were the rehab exercises that I needed to do religiously every night to give my body a fighting chance at waking up the next day to go do it all over again? I'd become basically my body was my own experiment. And I had to fundamentally change. No more was I trying to relax things. I had to put a lot of work into my body now and to strengthen it. And then sleep. Sleep was crucial. I love video games. That had to change because you can't be gaming till 2 o'clock in the morning and then wake up at 7 for a 20-mile run. You'll die or feel like it for the entire time. So I had to start getting at least a minimum of 7 hours of sleep. And those things were pretty crucial for me. But above all, man, aside from nutrition, aside from sleep and learning the exercises to take care of myself, it was this. Dude, I had to fortify such an incredibly strong mindset to endure that kind of long-term pain and pounding. Um, that was the thing that I had overlooked for the first couple months. I thought I had, I don't know, I thought I had been through pain before, but to be able to sit with those kinds of demons on those long runs, you've got to really start to develop a mindset because that's what was going to make me or break me on these runs. It wasn't it wasn't my body. Once I learned how to fuel, once I learned how to stretch out, once I learned how to sleep, the biggest variable in me being successful was how I was parenting myself on these long runs.
What were some of the things you were telling yourself on those long runs and also that 50-mile run?
Oh man, the 50-mile run. Um, here's the thing. I thought we all have these little ways that we sabotage ourselves without knowing about it. One of the ways that I was unknowingly sabotaging myself is I thought that the better I got at running, the more that inner voice begging me to quit, just turn around and go home, just stop. I thought that would go away because I'm a runner now, right? It's easy. I can do 10, 20, 30 miles like that. I, for the longest time, fought with that inner voice. I always expected it to not be there. And I was always expected that the better of a runner I became, the stronger I got, the more my endurance improved, the more experience I had, the stronger mentally I would just naturally be. And that wasn't the case. Man, even now, being capable of running 50 miles, that voice is there with me every step of the way. In the first half mile to the last 10, 15, especially those last 10, 15, 20 miles. I had to learn that that voice never goes away. That little inner voice that wants to keep you small and that wants to keep you weak, that's telling you to go home, put your feet up, go play video games, go have some snacks, go take a little warm bath, go relax. You don't need to be doing this. Come on, man. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. You've broken your back. Go be a dad. Go home. Have fun. That's always going to be there. And for the first year before my ultra, I fought that voice. I combated it. Fuck you. No. I yelled at it. I remember mid run screaming to let it out. I used anger to try to dominate the weaker part of myself. Some people, I think that works. It didn't work well with me because all I was doing was fighting myself every single training run. It wasn't until I learned how to use my other skill set, which is comedy, to be playful. I'm probably, and this is what every ex-girlfriend that I've had would say is I'm never serious. I always find a way to joke about something that's serious, you know. Can't you always, you know, can you be serious for a moment? I always learned how to use humor to deflect conflict. Once I learned how to do that with myself, when that little voice would come in to try to tell me to stop, instead of fighting it, instead of getting angry with it or expecting it not to be there, I started to be playful and jovial with it. Oh, it's about damn time you showed up today. What else you got? I had to learn how to be playful with the darkest parts of myself, the weakest parts of myself, not take myself so seriously. And once I did, I almost learned to like befriend that inner demon of weakness. And now when I expect it to be there, I now, it's like you hold a place for it. You're no longer expecting things to be easy. It's just like, come on, what do you got today? What mile are you going to show up on? Is it going to be in the first 5 minutes? Is it 10 minutes in? I've got a 5 hour run today. Are you going to be with me the whole time, bitching at me? Or are you just going to eventually get over it and join me on this run? You know, it's being playful with yourself. That was a huge mindset that I had. I had to develop that. Otherwise, I wasn't going to make it much longer. The 50-mile run was something entirely different. I had never done 50 miles before this race. And not only was it a 50-mile race, it was through the Oregon Old Cascadia mountain range. 15,000 vertical feet up and 15,000 feet down mountains. That's a lot. That's a lot of vertical gain and loss. So not only was it 50 miles, it was, man, the course profile, it was just up and down the entire time. And I don't have mountains like that where I trained. So I was in for a rude awakening. Um, I ran into a problem on that 50-mile race that I had never run into on training. At mile 13, I was done. I was spent. I ran into stomach issues. I couldn't have any water. I couldn't have any of my electrolyte tabs, my salt pills. I couldn't keep food down. My body resisted every ounce of aid and support and nutrition that I tried. My GI tract, it just tapped out at mile 13. And I had many miles to go, 37 miles to go. I was so mad. I was so frustrated that I ran into this problem I had never once experienced. I was so prepared, man, to do this race. And what? My tummy hurts. So that's why I can't go do this thing I told everybody I was going to go do. I was pissed. And so I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go as far as I can. I made it to the marathon mark. I was dizzy seeing stars. From mile 26 to 37 was the hardest few hours of my life. I prepared for physical breakdowns. I prepared for being playful with that demon that shows up. I nutritionally planned. I was not prepared for being pushed so far to the edge, so delirious, dehydrated, and hungry, and physically exerted that every level of conscious and subconscious suppression of childhood trauma, some of the harder things that I had been through in my life, it just all came up to the surface. And I'm alone in these woods. I am staggering, tripping over tree roots and rocks at mile 37. I've got 13 miles to go, dude. I am throwing up nothing. I'm dry heaving on my hands and knees. I was a mess. And I started to think about the 300,000 people that follow me. What am I going to tell them? I'm going to lie. What am I going to tell my family and my friends? Well, I could lie. I could say I just couldn't do it because I like got lost. I ran the wrong race. I did extra miles, so I was spent. I started coming up with all these stories, all these lies of why I couldn't do it. It was hard, man. Me just showing up should have been enough. But why wasn't it enough? Why wasn't who I was and the truth? Why wasn't my truth enough? Why did I have to go fabricate all of these things to be liked and to deflect failure? It was that identity of failure. It came back hard. At mile 37, I text my ride and I said, meet me at the next aid station. I'm done. And I'm crying, man. I got no tears coming out. I'm bawling my eyes out, or trying to, I think. And I somehow had cell reception and I call my best friend and he's like, it's hard, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm done. It's like, no, you're not. And I said, yeah, I'm done. I can't take another step. I am done. I was done at the marathon. I'm done now. Mile 37, that's it. And in such like a masculine but calm voice, he says, no, you're not. Would you would you think this was gonna be fucking easy? Of course this is hard. You signed up for this. Everything you're feeling is not real. I know it feels real to you, but you're not done. You have more to give. Pick your ass up and you are going to run as fast as you can, as hard as you can, for as long as you can. And call me when you cross that fucking finish line. And I was too tired to say no. And I said, okay. And I hung up my phone. I picked myself up. I grabbed dirt. I rubbed it on my face. I almost had like an Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator moment where he like becomes Earth. And dude, I walked to the next aid station, which I could see. I grabbed a full liter of Coca Cola. I downed probably half of it and I hauled ass and I took off running and I ran for the last 13 miles across the finish line and I did it. And it was epic. It was crazy. It was deep.
Man, at mile 37, you told him you couldn't take one more step. That's what you told him on the phone.
None. Done.
And that's the story that we tell ourselves a lot, right? In life is that I can't take one more steps. I can't bench press because my shoulder's messed up. I can't deadlift because I have back pain. I can't run because I have foot pain. All these things that we tell ourselves in our head. You're a walking testimony of what you tell yourself dictates what you're able to accomplish. And when you shifted that narrative in your head to no, okay, I'm gonna do this, and thank God you made the call to that person who told you that you weren't done. um, you
Yeah.
know, uh,
Yeah.
I have heard you talk about this story and you're like, yeah, I could have called my mom who would have, told me, okay, yes, like, take care of
Yeah,
yourself.
sweetie.
You're fine. Yeah, you're all good. But you
Yeah.
didn't. And after you crossed that finish line, what was the feeling that you had?
It's really hard to put that into words, man. It was I'm back. I am enough. And I can do anything that I want. Period. End of statement. That's it. It was fulfillment. Working through what I had to work through not only to just get to the darn race, but to actually do the race. And I knew that demon was on that final 13 miles. I knew it even looking at the course profile. I saw that final peak and I even put my finger on it and said, there, that's where I'm gonna have a break. I knew it was coming, but I didn't know to that extent. The man that I had to become to even get to the starting line, changing my diet, my sleep, my relationship with pain, making deep sacrifice, learning how to be playful with those inner demons, and then facing what I had to face on that course, it I feel unstoppable, man. I feel only limited by the story that I settle on. That's it.
Did you have a what's next moment after that?
As soon as I crossed that finish line, before I could even fall to my knees and say, hell yeah, the race director put the medal around my neck and said, "Congratulations, son! You qualified for the I think it was like the UTMB 100. This is
Yeah,
a race that
that's
starts in France."
yeah, that's
Yeah,
yeah,
it
I'm
was.
aware. That's like the World Series of freaking ultra running.
Oh man, he said that I qualified for that with the 50 miler time that I had, and I wanted to do that. I wanna do that. That's on the plan. I have to get very clear about what I'm gonna say yes to, because that's no joke, as none of them are, but that's pretty rugged. So, um, I wanted more. I wanted more experiences like that.
So what are you currently pursuing?
Well, I did have an ultra scheduled in Patagonia. I've always wanted to go to Patagonia, and so I had an ultra marathon scheduled for, September 30th. Of this past year, 2023. Trained for it. I was in better shape mentally and physically than I was for my first ultra. Did all the work. I hired Zach Bitter, who's a world record holder in the 100 miler race. So I had a good guy on my team, man. I was ready for this thing. I flew all the way down to Patagonia, and in my carbo loading night before the race, 2 nights before the race, I got deathly ill, food poisoning, and I had to go to the hospital in Patagonia. And so I had to tap out. I, this race was going to be like 2.5 hours into the national park. There's no hospital close by. You have to get helivaced out of there. And it was just one of those things where I preach you got to listen to yourself, and everything in my body was saying you're not going to make it if you do this race. You're going to run into a pretty extreme problem if you do it. So I flew all the way. I flew 6,600 miles to not run an ultra marathon is what I'm trying to say. Tapped out of that race. Um, I don't know what's next for me. I don't know. I've got a couple options. I've got a score to settle in the redwoods. There's a marathon up there in May that I really want to just go haul, because it's half of the distance of an ultra. So I think it'd be fun to do a little bit of a fast event. Um, I want something big that's going to make me excited to train. I definitely don't want to do a race in like Bakersfield or in like the middle of the country. I want it to be in a cool location. So I haven't landed on one yet, because I know once I do, it's shifting right back into the training mode. And it's
Ha
kind of nice not running for like 25
Yeah.
hours a week.
Dude,
It's kind of nice.
100%. Since I had been recovering from the heart condition, I have not been running much really at all. I'm blessed that I'm able to do it, but it's like when you get some of the time back, and not just the time back, but you're not just constantly having to prioritize like sleep and recovery and nutrition and all the things that come outside of the time running. It's like, oh, it's not too bad. So it's giving yourself a break from it is not a bad thing always.
Yeah, I mean, my team is thankful because we've got this big business now. We've got a big team, and all of my team calls I was just doing on the road while I'm running. So they're just hearing me huffing and puffing because that was the only way I could get the runs in while still running a business. while still being a dad, I had to put my son in strollers, and like our quality time was him spent turning around as I'm like pushing him. You know, it's nice to actually be a human being and not be running all the time. But I miss those just I feel like the structure that running and training for an ultra provided me is just unparalleled. Like you were forced to have such a disciplined, rigorous routine because if you don't, your body's going to fall apart. And so I really miss being in the pit of race preparation.
So with Pain Academy, do you guys particularly look to work with athletes? Do you work with the everyday individual looking to get out of pain? Who is the target market or who would benefit from what you guys offer with Pain Academy?
It's a great question. Target market is anybody who wants to move and feel better. And that is all encompassing. One of the challenges with this business is there is no demographic. People. This is for people. This is to help everybody increase their capacity to move, which can then go on to lead to amazing things like pain relief or you getting back into a sport that you loved, or like me doing something that you never in your wildest dreams thought you'd do, which is ultra marathon running. It's for anybody who wants to feel better and move better. Whether you're somebody who doesn't even know how to spell gym and you literally have zero fitness about you, but you just know you don't feel good, or you are literally an elite or pro athlete. Anybody can benefit from just basic self-care movement routines that we teach. It's pretty cool.
And what is the goal for it? Where do you see this going? Where do you see it in the next year, 5 years, 10 years plus?
I see us moving towards scale. I mean, I really see this being one of the things that is recommended first in people's line of defense or options when it comes to treating or managing chronic pain, musculoskeletal injuries, and movement impairments. I don't want people to spend 5 years and to be handed two business cards of some random guy to eventually find something that could be really helpful for them. I want to be at the forefront of the conversation. I want people to go after movement problems and resolve as much of that first before they start going down really narrow pathways that are just a huge Hail Mary. It's a huge swing and a miss, hoping that a surgery might fix things, but not looking at the underlying cause as to the way your movement is complicating problems in your body. So I want to be at the forefront of the conversation when it comes to treating musculoskeletal injuries and impairments that
So
many of us have.
you're helping thousands of people. You guys have grown massively, which has been incredible to see. Um, and some of the testimonials are just incredible. So I'll have the link to all of it in the show notes so people can check out Pain Academy. But I'm curious, with all that you mentioned, you have a son, you have the business, you have the races that really excite you and fill your cup up. If you had to pinpoint one thing in life right now that really, really excites you, what is that?
It's being a dad, man.
Mm.
It's being a dad. That's what it is. It's my son is my world. Um, he almost like gives me permission to be a kid again and have fun with life. Life was so traumatic and so serious for such a long time that I get to just kind of vicariously live through him and really enjoy life in really big ways with him. So I want to I want to use this running and show him what his father can do, show him how tough his dad is, and I want to take him around the world to see it. I really wish I would have brought him to Patagonia, but I'm glad I didn't because then he would have had to see me in a hospital bed laid up. But he probably would have learned an important lesson. You got to listen to yourself, you know? So I just want to be a great father, man. I want to show up for him in the best way that I can and be better of a runner I am, be better of a business leader I am, the better of a father I can show up and support this kid in the way he needs to be. So that's what's keeping me going, man. That's my main source of motivation and fuel right now.
I love and respect that a ton. My last question for you, brother, is this is the Pure Ambition podcast. So when you hear those two words, what do they mean to you and how do they apply to your daily life?
And pure ambition, it's like knowing what you want. You got to know what you want. If you don't know what you want, There's no way in God's green earth can you have pure ambition. You can be like motivated sometimes if you catch a really great reel. Maybe David Goggins just lights you up one day and you feel on it for a little bit of time. But man, if you don't know what you want, there's it's really hard to have pure ambition. So spend some time figuring out what it is you want with your life. Get very clear on what you want it to look like, what you want to feel, what you want to know, how you want people to perceive you when you walk into a room, and stop at nothing to get it. That's what pure ambition means to me.
That's phenomenal, man. Dude, I am so grateful for our conversation today. And sometimes I like to just like debrief and just share my key takeaways from this. And that is that there's always hope so long as you believe it. For you, it took a long time for you to finally get out of pain, but you went from years of hobbling around the gym, like you said, to now getting ready to run, qualifying for the world's hardest ultra, like getting ready to run 100-mile races and not living in pain. And that all came from one 90-minute session that there could be a glimpse of hope. So for me, and the message that I hope people can take away from this is like, so long as you keep wanting more, like you mentioned, pure ambition, your definition is like knowing what you want. Like if you want to get out of pain, if you want to run that race or set that PR or hit whatever fitness goal, like there's hope for it so long as you continue to pursue it. So I just want to say thank you and I acknowledge you for all that you do, brother.
All said. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. If people want to connect with you, if they want to check out Pain Academy, what's the best place for them to do that?
Instagram probably is our most used social channel. So just at Pain Academy, or you can go to painacademy.net for the website. I also have free routines. So I don't expect anybody to take my word for it. Just feel what I'm talking about. If you go to painacademy.net, go take the survey. I'll ask you a couple questions about what problems you're experiencing. I will give you a free routine that you can start immediately right now. I just feel what I'm talking about. Do it, try it, let me know how it goes, and we'll take it from there.
Amazing, brother. Appreciate you. I love what you're doing, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Thanks, my man. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. I wanted to give you all a heads up too that I launched a free community on the Upspace app where you can join, ask me questions, connect with like-minded individuals, follow my 4-week running and strength training program that has some dedicated mobility sessions in there as well, so that we can all optimize our health and fitness together. So if you're interested, head over to the App Store, download the Upspace app, and join the Pure Ambition community today. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.